Alright, greetings friends. This time on the square table we are going to talk about Crossfire Sector by ULC Battle Reports. Crossfire Sector is a futuristic tabletop miniatures war game designed by a YouTuber named ULC Battle Reports. This is a skirmish game originally designed to be played at a 15mm scale on a small grid play area, but I'm sure to also be able to scale up without a problem. Just to get an idea of what a 15mm scale model looks like, this is a normal 32mm scale guide I'm sure most of you are familiar with. The rules of the game are quick and easy, and everything that you will need will fit on a single sheet of paper front and back if needed. This includes how to play, mission types, campaign mode, optional rules, and stats about 5 original factions that can be played in the game. Each player can field up to 5 models per faction except for a faction called the Solar Wardens, which can only field 4 models because they are pretty powerful. I think a lot of people might turn their nose at this, but my favorite part about this game is the fact that for each faction, all the models are the same. So instead of a typical war game where you have 5 different units of the same team, but each have different stats, in this game it's more like having 5 copies of the same unit. This is a upscaled version using 28 and 32mm models. So you're going to have 5 of your typical Space Marines if you have them laying around, and then if you have 5 random Space Lizards laying around, you can do that. But let's say that the only models that you have laying around that are painted are all Space Lizards. Well, that's no problem. You'll just do this. You can just use 2 different types of units and fight against each other to represent any of the factions in the game. Even though all the models are going to have the same stats as far as each faction in the game, the designer did a pretty good job of balancing the factions out, so some might be tough with a short range and others might be able to go a long distance and have a long range attack. But because of this, it's super easy to track how your army is played because all you needed to remember is one set of rules. Which I will argue that with the size, setup, and simplicity of the factions, this is the perfect game to make a few copies of and teach people that are brand new into wargaming. It took me very little time to print and do a simple paint job on 15 scale models. I wouldn't have had a problem with producing a few more sets for demos, and if some got broken or lost, it wouldn't really upset me a lot. So once you get someone used to the concept of wargaming, you can just add more units and rules in order to graduate them up to something like 1-page rules or even up to Warhammer. So I ended up designing my own play area. This is another reason that I like the game because I'm just into doing crafty stuff like building parts for my wargames. So here we are in Adobe Illustrator, and I made a 9x9 grid using 3/4 size squares. I have an entire collection of texture images that I've either downloaded from free websites or I've captured out in the wild. These are just stone pavers that I've aligned on a grid, and then I overlaid with transparent color layers just to make the center different from the deployment zones. Then I printed the image onto photo paper and glued them onto foam core boards, and then I have a small playing area. All of the terrain files are files from the 1-page rules urban terrain set. I just scaled them down to a smaller size using a 3D slicer. I wanted them to cover a 4x4 area on the grid, so if each square was 3/4 of an inch, I just scaled the longest edge of the model to 1.5 inches or under. I was looking for something that was in the sci-fi military range, and once again I dove into my collection of one-page rules, and I picked a few units from the Human Defense Force that were equipped with assault rifles. When I'm printing, especially if I'm scaling down to a 15mm size, I like to combine the bases with the units of the models while I'm in the 3D slicer. In Lychee, I arrange the models together, and then I select both objects and export them as a combined STL. Then I will bring the combined models back into Lychee and rescale the models down to 50%, which is roughly around 15mm. And then I will raise the model off the plate a bit, then rotate them a little and generate auto supports and a light setting with a normal density. That usually does the trick for me. I primed all the models in black, and then for the first team/faction, I airbrushed them from the top using a zenithal effect with pure red from Army Painter. Then with some broadsword silver speed paint, I picked up the weapons and just a few armor bits. I figured I would experiment a little, so I covered the entire models in red tone quick shade wash. That dulled down the metallics a little bit, so I went back over with metallic paints just on the top edges. Here's an example of one model with the red wash and one without. It's not a huge difference, but I feel like the ones with the red wash makes both the shadows and the color richer. Then finally I hit all the edges of the bases with some grim black. I repeated the same process with the blue team using ultramarine blue airbrush and blue quick shade. In the end, I now have a cool portable board complete with terrain and 2 sets of miniatures. The game has 5 different factions with different colors, but instead of printing and painting 5 different sets, I'll just use this old Halo style layout with this red versus blue, and I'll use those to represent any faction that I like to play. So if you're really not that crafty and you really want to try this game or just tabletop wargaming in general, I drew this map in just a few minutes using graphic paper. The basic layout is a 15x9 squares. On another sheet of paper, I made tiles that are 3x3 blocks, which fit great on a 8.5x11 sheet. The game works pretty good if you basically just have a 9x9 square in between the 2 deployment zones. And even if you don't have miniatures, just use some tokens, coins, or even just chess pieces. This are all you're going to need to play the game. So here is a super quick explanation of the rules. 2 factions are set up on opposite deployment zones. Both players roll 1d6 for initiative at the beginning of the round. The winner can choose to activate 1 unit or allow the opponent to. After that, each player alternate activations by activating up to 2 units at a time. Every faction has a different movement stat, so the Verdant Eye can move up to 4 spaces, or move up to half 2 spaces, and shoot, or move up to 2 spaces and perform first aid, or they can hold and do nothing. When moving, diagonal movements are allowed. Range attacks are resolved by first being in range, and then rolling 2d6. The sum of the dice rolls plus the attack quality must have a value more than the target's defense value. For example, the verdant eye shot at an azure blade. The total of the dice roll plus the quality of 1 equals 10, which is more than the target's defense value of 8, so the unit is down. Melee also involves 2d6 for both players to roll. The player that rolls the highest sum of 2d6 plus their faction's attack value wins in melee. If there is a tie, then nothing happens. A down unit is marked by placing it on its side and cannot be activated. To destroy a unit, an enemy must be beside the down unit and burn an attack action. No dice is needed. A friendly unit can move up to half of its movement stat and perform a first aid for the down unit. Revive units can now immediately activate if needed. That is basically how the game works. There are other different objective and mission types that you can choose, such as straight kills or occupying areas. Well, that is my Crossfire sector build. Be on the lookout for a battle report soon. I will put a link in this video for ULC Battle Report's channel so you can subscribe, and also a link to the video of his debut of this game where he shows off how to play it and how to download it. As of recording this video, you can get the rule sets for free. I wasn't asked by ULC Battle Reports to do this video. I just thought it was a cool thing, and I like to support creative people doing creative things. I personally love to see other wargaming channels release super simple rule sets like this. Games that are simple enough for a group of wargamers to sit around on a weekend and just play through a new rule set, and you can figure out just in 1 or 2 playthroughs. Setting up this game is almost less complicated than bringing over a chessboard or a Catan board game. And at the same time, you are teaching people how to wargame, which I think is pretty awesome. Thanks for watching, and be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. You can also find me on other social media such as Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and Blue Sky. And I'll see you guys on our next adventure.